What's going on, guys? It's Alicia from Divine Living with Purpose, and I want to welcome you back. In episode one, we identified the creep, right? That silent, quiet, cumulative friction that eventually turns into a heavy, silent weight. We acknowledged that many of us are carrying attachments to things that were never truly our assignment in the first place. We've talked about how we fill in the gaps for everyone else until there's no room left for us. But identifying that weight is only the beginning, really. It is. The real challenge is recognizing when that weight has settled in and became your permanent setting. And I left you with a question the last time that we're going to address today. And it is what happens when burnout stops feeling like a season and becomes a lifestyle. We often tell ourselves that, I just got to get through this month, or I just got to get through this project, and once it's over, I'll rest. And we treat rest like it's some kind of reward, or the end of a marathon. But when we really stop and look at the calendar, we realize that the finish line has been moving for years. The goalpost has continuously moved the entire time. And when exhausted is no longer a temporary state, but your way of life, we have to find the courage to be honest about the pace that we've been keeping for so long. We have to stop calling it a busy season and start calling it what it is. And what it it is an unsustainable lifestyle. Okay? And I say that because I've spent a lot of time living in that gap. The things that I talk about throughout these podcasts, these are real life experiences. And I'm in that gap right now. It's a space between knowing that you're exhausted and believing the lie that it's just a temporary push. Actually, it's a very dangerous place to live because you're constantly negotiating with your own peace, your own health, your own mental stability. You know, I've found myself overextending in just about every area at some point throughout my transition in my career, in my family, in my church, and in my community. And these were all good things, right? These were things that I was proud to do. But eventually, that joy began to leak out of the service. Let me say that again. The joy in all the good things that I was proud to do, it eventually began to leak out of the service. And I began to notice a shift that things used to be a calling began to feel like a burden to me. It just felt like another responsibility that I had to manage. And when your well being and well doing turns into a chore, that resentment starts to grow and settle in. It starts very small, though. It starts small, and then it turns into that heavy sigh when an email pops up, or a feeling of dread when your phone rings, or if you get a text from somebody or something. You find yourself just kind of frustrated with the very people that you're supposed to be serving. You start to feel like everyone wants a piece of you, but no one is really checking for you. Nobody's checking up on you. Nobody's looking out for you. They just want what they want in that moment. And it's a quiet bitterness that shows up when someone asks for just one more thing, right? And if this resonates with you, I want you to take note. Please take note. You aren't in a busy season, you are in a survival lifestyle. The reason why we stay stuck in the survival mode is often because we believe that helping is the ultimate requirement of our faith. We're told to carry one another's burdens, and we take that command to heart. We really do. But we often take it too far. We forget that there's a difference between helping someone through a crisis and permanently carrying a load that was designed for their own growth. Let me say that again. We forget that there's a difference between helping someone through a crisis and permanently carrying a load that was designed for their own growth. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And it's a very hard pill and a hard truth to swallow. Because, sometimes our extra mile is actually preventing someone else from walking their own first mile. When we rush in to save and be a part of every situation, we enable others to stay stagnant, right? We think that we're being supportive, but what we're actually doing is we're interfering and impeding the process intended for their own growth and maturity. Okay. And if I'm always the one catching the ball, or if you're always the one catching the ball, then they never really learn how to keep their own eyes on the ball if you're always catching it. So sometimes the most obedient thing you can do is to just take your hands off. Help others help themselves. By saying no to the demands of others, you are protecting the integrity and the peace of your own soul. You were called to be a light, and even a light needs a power source. You can't shine if you're burnt out. You can't shine any kind of light if you are burnt down to the wick. And I'm sharing these things as someone that's actively walking it out right now. I'm speaking from a place of not having arrived yet, but from a place of doing the work, right? And that's important. I've moved past just being aware of the problem, and now I'm more so in the phase of testing the waters, right? I'm actively not doing. I'm just not doing. I'm running an experiment to see exactly what changes when I stop overfunctioning. Okay. I'm watching to see what happens when I simply just don't catch the ball anymore. And here's the revelation. The world keeps spinning. Everything keeps rolling along. People will find their own way, you know? By stopping the rush to help, I am discovering who I am without all the doing. And for some, it can be a little scary. For some, it brings on uncertainty, because when you're transitioning from one space and place to another, it feels unfamiliar, right? But again, that's where the true transformation takes place. Matthew 6:33 tells us that, we ought to seek the kingdom first. And for me in this season, that means that seeking God's priority for my life is at the forefront. And right now, that priority for me is my health and my recovery from burnout. I am finding the courage to stand and advocate for my own well being. It's not being selfish, it's stewardship, actually. So whatever it is in your season that God has led you to prioritize, you must have the courage to say no. You got to have the courage to say no in order to be obedient to that calling. And it may mean letting the ball drop. If it wasn't yours to carry in the first place, then dropping the ball, like how would that affect you? You know. Before I lead you into some reflective questions, I want to give you a few power thoughts to carry with you this week, and these are anchors that I've been using to keep myself from drifting back into that overfunctioning lifestyle. Power thought number one: silence is not a yes. You don't owe an immediate response to every "are you available" text, right? Give yourself permission to let that request sit there while you check your own capacity. I can't tell you how many times I've watched the phone ring and watched text messages come through. And, I just don't have the capacity. I don't have the emotional bandwidth right now to respond, because you know that once you respond, it's going to lead and transition to other things. And it may eventually open that door back to you possibly overextending again. Okay. So just chill. Let it sit there. Power thought number two: your no is a gift to someone else's growth. If I do this for them, I am stealing their opportunity to learn how to do it for themselves. Right? Your no is a gift to someone else's growth. If I do this for them, I am stealing their opportunity to learn how to do it for themselves. And I've had to, you know, apply that own thinking, to my current workspace right now. I just I just have to step back and let them do it themselves. Power thought number three: stewardship over sacrifice. So God called us to be good stewards of our lives, not human sacrifices to everyone else's lack of boundaries. We have to start establishing boundaries and sticking to them. holding ourselves accountable for sticking to our boundaries. A lot of times, we, feel guilty for saying no or, scaling back and not doing the things that you used to do. But what is it really tied to? Is it tied to someone's opinions of you? If you say no, or what are they going to think? Those are the things that really keeps us in that overfunctioning loop over and over and over again, is by not establishing boundaries. And once you establish those boundaries, you got to have the courage to stick to them. It's hard, but very much so doable. Power thought number 4: the world won't stop, but your peace might. If you catch the ball, the task is done, but your peace is gone. Choose your peace. For once, choose your peace. The world won't stop, but your peace is at stake. Choose your peace. Okay? As you move through the week, I want you to sit with these 3 questions that I've been also asking myself. Number 1 is my assignment, is this my assignment? Or am I just the easiest person to ask? Let me say that again. Number 1 is this my assignment, or am I just the easiest person to ask? And sometimes I tell people, well, if you're always saying yes, you're always going to be the go-to person. Once you start saying no, they'll just find somebody else to do it, And I've definitely tested that one, and it's pretty peaceful on the side. When you say no, they'll just find someone else to ask for assistance. But you don't have to pick that up. You don't have to carry that, not at all. Number 2, does my yes to this request require a no to my own peace? Does my yes to this request require a no to my own peace? It's simple. If I say yes, is it going to disturb my peace? If I say no, do I maintain my peace? You just got to see how it plays out. Your peace, own your peace, stand for your peace. Number 3, by taking my hands off, am I actually giving someone else the space they need to grow? A lot of times we think that by keeping our hands in the pot and keeping our hands on processes and things like that, this is going to make them do it. No, sometimes you got to say what you're going to say, do what you're going to do, establish and implement what you're going to implement. And I'm talking about in a career workspace for this context, but could be applicable to anything, personal, family life, whatever the case may be. By taking my hands off, am I actually giving someone else that space that they need to grow? Sometimes you just got to let it go. You got to let it go. I want to reinforce that taking your hands off of things isn't quitting. It's realigning. I'm going to say it again. Taking your hands off of things isn't quitting. It's realigning. It's choosing to lead your life with intention instead of letting your overfunctioning lead you. You got to be intentional about this, like very intentional. It's about finding the courage to stand up straight again after leaning for so long. And next time, we're going to go even deeper into that transition and talk about the identity crisis, that struggle of figuring out who you are when you finally have the courage to put all that weight down. Every time you're walking through a transition, there's always going to be a new identity. There's always going to be a move from who you were to now who you are going to become. And it can be scary, but very, very necessary in order to move you from where you are, a place of burnout, to a place of peace. And I'm excited to dive into the next episode. But this is Alicia from Divine Living with Purpose, and I'll meet you right there next time.